Okay, now we are going live. So
Awesome.
now we're definitely live. Okay,
That's awesome.
we had a little tech mishap, but we're definitely live now.
That's
So
awesome.
welcome to Grad Chat by PhD Balance, where we talk about topics of grad school beyond academic research and that may be a bit more difficult to talk about in our day-to-day. I'm your host, Linda Corcoran, and I'm currently completing a research master's in food science. And for PhD Balance, I am the grad chat lead and a Twitter coordinator. If you like what you see here, make sure to check out our YouTube channel and the podcast for more grad chats. And don't forget to subscribe for notifications about when we go live. Our topic today is starting grad school after a short break from higher education. And I'm super excited to welcome our guest, Dr. Silvi Di Pietro. She is a postdoctoral graduate fellow within the National Nuclear Security Administration, and she graduated from Florida International University last March with a PhD in environmental chemistry. But her journey to grad school might be a little bit different from some people's. Many people go straight from undergrad to PhD or from undergrad to master's to PhD, but Silvi decided to take a short break before going to grad school, and she's going to talk about that and what it was like starting grad school after that break. So welcome, Silvi. We're super excited to have
Thank
you on Grad
you.
Chat.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited as well.
I guess let's dive right into it. To
Sure.
start, what made you decide to go back to school?
Yeah, that's the million dollar question. Alrighty. So it all started when I finished school back in 2012. I had finished my bachelor's in chemistry and I was applying for different jobs. And I started to work as a teacher. And at the same time, I was wondering, well, am I going to be using the actual science? Am I going to be able to work in a lab as I was thinking of doing? And so I had applied to several pharmaceutical companies. And one particular company had asked me, okay, I see your resume, I see your CV, but I do not see that you have lab experience. And I was like, hmm, I do have lab experience. I mean, I took biochemistry lab, instrumental analysis lab. I took so many different labs. What do you mean I don't have lab experience? All those reports that I wrote and all those lab hours that I had spent here in America, 3 hours of lab is equal to 1 credit. And so 1 credit, it's very little because sometimes when you take a class, for example, chemistry one, it's 3 credits. So you can just see the big difference of how little credit or how little importance it is when it comes to credits, but the amount of work is insane. And so I thought that my lab credits had prepared me to work in the lab, but that was not what the pharmaceutical company was considering. So I had applied to several different ones, and unfortunately, I didn't get hired. And there was one which asked me, "Well, I'm sorry, you're going to be needing lab experience." And I was like, "Wow." So this means that I need to continue working, or this means that I need to continue studying because that is what I like. And so when I noticed that I was having a lot of different roadblocks, I should say also that I taught for about 6 to 7 months. I was teaching middle school science. And after that period ended, I was tutoring. I was doing tutoring chemistry in a community college here in Florida. And so I was like, I'm loving teaching. I really enjoyed my experience as a teacher in middle school, and I'm liking what I'm doing as a tutor. But I realized that I could potentially do more. And I actually spoke to a chemistry teacher of mine from high school, and he said, I know that you're very happy as a teacher and as a tutor, but you're very young and you could be doing more. And this is the time that you should be pursuing a career. This is the time to be in school, particularly grad school, because I know that you could do more than tutor or teach. Teaching you could do when you're 24. At the time, I was 22, 23. You could teach when you're 22, 23, but you could also teach when you're 57, when you're 65. And so that was like a huge, yeah, I need to act and do something. And so between me having a difficult time finding a job that was fit for my career, for my degree, and at the same time thinking, okay, time-wise, I think it's a good time to go back to school, I decided to apply to a graduate chemistry program. And so that is how it all started. It took a while. It did take a break. It took approximately 2 years and a half. I must say that the beginning of those 2 years and a half, I was still looking to see what path I was going to take career-wise. And at the same time, I needed a break from the amount of work that I had done for the 4 years and a half that took my chemistry bachelor's degree. So it was a personal break. My mind needed a break, but it was major. The major two reasons was, okay, this time is good for graduates for pursuing some physically. The time is good to start school, and also because I wasn't really finding what I was looking for in a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I
Thank you.
guess why it still is such a big decision to go back to grad school, especially in the US, because it's such a process to get in.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Did having that break give you an advantage in your interviews? Did it having that teaching experience help you a little bit? Did they ask you about it?
Well, they didn't ask me in the interview because the way that you get accepted to grad school here is that you take the GRE, which is like an entrance exam, but that is nationwide. So that is one thing. They look at your degree, and then they look at your essay. So I didn't have one-to-one interview with any schools. I mean, I only applied to two because I wanted to stay locally. Perhaps if I was applying to Yale or Harvard, perhaps I would have an interview there. But it did help me in the sense that as time progressed, I knew that I was sure that I was wanting to go back to school. And so the way that those 2 years helped in my decision was also how important it was at that time, because I noticed it much more, especially in those pharmaceutical companies asking those questions. I was so upset when they asked me, where is your lab experience? Okay, anyway, I can't get it out of my mind.
No, I get that. That can be quite annoying. But I guess after all of that whole process of applying and getting in, what was it like to actually transition back to being a student after being a, I guess, grown-up employee working in the world?
Yeah, that was a huge transition. And I'll be honest, the first semester, I started August until December, January, starting the second semester of my graduate school. It was difficult. It was difficult because I had taken a break. I wasn't in school anymore. And I remember particularly when I had gotten accepted to the graduate program at my university, FIU, Go Panthers. When I got accepted, I had told my physics professor, "Hey, I'm coming back to FIU. I'm really excited to be a grad student." And he told me, "I'm very happy for you. Just so you know, I'm giving you a heads up. Graduate school is like undergrad, but on steroids." And when he told me that, I was like, okay, I'm in for a treat. Let's see what this is all about. And he was right. He was right. It was a combination of working in my lab, of course, the Applied Research Center at FIU. It was working. It was going back to school and taking difficult courses. And it was also trying to maintain a life, sleeping, eating, seeing friends. So I would say, it wasn't difficult, but I was ready, and I was definitely mentally ready.
Absolutely. I mean, the transition from undergrad to grad school, or from workplace to grad school, is a big transition, no matter where you're
Yeah.
coming from or how long you've been in academia or in higher education or anything, because there is such a difference. You're expected to do so many
Yes.
things and learn so many things so quickly. I guess another important question is, how did you find those first few weeks? I know we talked about it in general, but especially when
Mhm.
you like get there and you're in grad school, was it like, oh my God, what is this? Going back into
Well,
a classroom?
no, it wasn't particularly that. It wasn't as a shock, so much of a shock, because I have to be honest, I really was missing school. Those 2 years after my mental break of bachelor's, I was like, I'm missing learning. I'm missing speaking with classmates and professors, that interaction of just being in a learning environment. I was wanting and craving that, but it wasn't easy time wise because, like I mentioned, I was working at the Applied Research Center. They were the ones that funded my PhD. And so it was a part time job, but it's not like you were only working 20 hours. Sometimes you worked much more than 20 hours. I mean, you were trying to do your experiments. So sometimes if the experiments didn't go the way they were supposed to go, you needed to spend more time in the lab. And I knew that, but I really didn't know how it was going to feel. And it wasn't fun to stay. It didn't happen every single day, but when it started to happen, the first few months, I was like, oh, I wish I could be home at 7:30, not be here. But that's part of being a grad student, especially in the STEM world. And that's going to happen. And like I mentioned, it was also time to take classes. And those classes, like my physics professor told me, they were on steroids because sometimes you would have to read 3, 5 chapters in a very short amount of time. And so that was the transition that at the beginning, of course, I wasn't used to because I wasn't doing that as a tutor or as a science teacher. And so it took a while. There were many sleepless nights. I actually lost a little bit of weight, but then I gained it. And I was like, okay, what's going on? But it was just a matter of getting used to the routine because it was a new routine. I felt like I was in undergrad again because undergrad wasn't easy for me. I had a lot of courses to take. I like the fact that there were less courses here, but the intensity was much, much more. And so that is something that I advise to graduate students or future graduate students, that they shouldn't compare it to what happened in undergrad. It's going to be very similar, but as a graduate student, you are going to be thinking independently. You're going to have help. You're going to have your PI supporting you. But at the same time, you have to make your own decisions. And that's also another pressure. And at the same time, that transition was like, okay, now I need to plan my calendar because nobody had ever done that. Like, you don't, in a way, it's easier in undergrad because those timelines and deadlines, it's based on the professor and that syllabus, but the syllabus is much shorter, and the classes are intense. So you have to find a way to be handling those intense courses, plus working if you're being funded by a grant or a research grant in my case, which they are expecting from you reports and data and even conferences. And so I remember, I'm going to delve here a little bit, but I remember that in March, so I started in August. In March, I had a conference and I sent in my poster draft to my mentor, an advisor, and she said, well, next time you have a conference, you need to start earlier because this poster is not the way that it needs to be presented at the conference. And I was like, oh man, yeah, these deadlines are really a pain in the butt. And I have to be ready and be on my feet because it's pressure. and you're going to feel that pressure when you're in grad school.
Absolutely. And for, I guess, going back a little bit, but you put up a poll yesterday on Instagram asking people if they had taken a break before going into your grad school or not. Were those results similar to, I guess, your own cohort within your grad program? Were there many other people who had taken a break, or had they all gone straight through from undergrad to grad school?
Actually, yeah, that's a great question, because most of the people that had started with me back in August of 2015, most of them had transitioned from a master's program, or they had just finished undergrad. And so the poll said that it was 60 to 40%, 60 being that they did not take a break. A break, I figured as a 2-year gap, and so they did take a break, 60%, but only 40, which I thought it was actually a pretty large amount, they did not take a break. I would say that in my cohort, it was closer to 70% that they didn't take a break, and the rest that they had taken a break, or they were just transitioning from a master's program. So probably they had done a break between bachelor's and master's. But no, yeah, in my school, most had not taken a break, but I needed it. So this is also a very personal note. I needed it because I had really worked really hard in my bachelor's, and mentally and physically, I needed to take a break to decide which path I was going to take. But I'm glad I did, because it in those 2 years and a half, it really made me want to go back to school and know what I wanted to do.
I think that's great, and it's really important, because I think in some places people can get so into, you should know from an early age that you want to be in research, you want to be in academia, and you can be unsure even if you know that you like research, and that's fine. Or in some countries, they think that you need to go straight from undergrad to PhD. You shouldn't be doing a master's. You shouldn't have to decide. You should know what your passion is. And that's just not true for most people.
That's
and it's
correct.
Okay to take that time and figure it out.
100% correct. And I must say, I was discussing this with my mentor in one of the national labs that I worked at, and I was like, oh man, I took 2 years and a half. I should have not done that. And he's like, no, that was what you needed. And I actually know a colleague of mine. We did undergrad together, and then when he was in his 40s, he realized that he was wanting to go back to school and do a PhD. It worked for him. It's just depending on you. But I must advise that you need to know yourself, and you need to ask those questions to you only. So it's a very personal decision. That's why it worked very well for my mentors and advisors, colleague and classmate, because he noticed that he needed to go back to school when he was 40. There's more challenges when you're 40, but that was his time.
Absolutely. And especially in the US, because graduate programs can be so long. Like
Yeah.
I'm in Europe, and our graduate programs are 3 to 4 years, whereas
Okay.
so that's a less of a commitment than 5, 6, 7, or however long people need to do it. I know it can be up to 10 years in the US.
My school had a policy, I remember during orientation, that we couldn't prolong our graduate school more than 9 years. 9 years was the top.
9 years is still, it's a
long
big
time.
block of your life.
Yes.
You need to be sure when you go for that commitment, even if you only think that it's going to be 5 or 6 years.
And sometimes, I have to say, luckily it didn't happen for me, but sometimes life gets in the way. And maybe you need to take a break from one semester. You do need to take a break within your graduate school. Maybe you got married or you had a kid and you have to take a break. So you have to be committed to a graduate program. And that is why my chemistry teacher, when I met him, just talking and telling him how happy I was in my role as a teacher and tutor, he was like, but the longer you wait, the more things are going to get in the way. So because it's such a big commitment, you don't want to have too many commitments in the way. And so that's another thing that you have to think about. So that's another reason why I'm really happy that I'm speaking today, because it's for those young students that are planning on going to graduate school. Look at yourself, think about what your plans are short term. What are you planning on doing the next 5 years of your life? If the answer is, for example, getting married, well, maybe you need to prioritize that and then think about graduate school, because getting married is going to take a bunch of your time. But if you're prioritizing school or graduate school, then you have to say, okay, for the next 5, 6 years of my life, I need to prioritize this. So it's a very introspective way of also getting to know you.
Absolutely, definitely. You learn a lot about yourself going through graduate school, going through research, going through deadlines, and finding out where your boundaries are in regards to what you do want to do, what you don't want to do, where you want to be in life. So I guess a good question here is, what advice or what tips do you have for people who want to transition back into graduate school from after a break or anything like that?
Yeah, this is a great question. And it can be answered in many different ways. There's not one tip. There's several that you have to consider. So perhaps I'll start with my first one. You have to research very well which program you want to get into. Let's say you want to do aerospace science. Well, what are the top schools within your reach that you're wanting to go and apply? Do as much research as you can, comparing those different schools, because you're going to be spending 5, 6 years of your life in that school. So you want to make sure that you like that. And just not only with the school, you have to also be researching who you're going to work for. Make sure that you research not only the school, but the PI, the principal investigator. Who are you going to work for? Who is in your group? Who are your group members? Are you going to get along with them? What is the type of environment that you're going to be working in that lab? Is the PI a well-renowned scientist in that field? Do you get along with this person? Can you interact with this person prior to you working in that lab day one? I think you need to know that person before, because you're going to be spending a lot of time with that person. And then another tip, I think it's very important. I've answered it before, but it's very important that you know yourself and that you are going to be committed to this huge task. It's a big thing. I mean, you have to be taking classes. You have to be going sometimes abroad or sometimes to different states, in my case, to be presenting your research. You have to have the dedication and time to put all your energy into this baby that you're growing. And I say baby because for my, as soon as I finished my dissertation, I took a picture with my dissertation as he was my baby. And I said that this baby took 5.5 years to write or to get, evolved. And so you are creating a baby. That is your book. That is your dissertation. You have to have the energy and time because you're going to be committed. So it's a way for you to think about, okay, am I ready for this? Do I have the time and energy to do this? Because yes, life can get in the way, but you have to know how you're going to be dealing with both things, school and whatever other commitment you have in life. So yeah, let me say those tips again. Research the school. That includes funding because you want to have a good funding. You don't want to pay and be in debt when you're doing grad school. So research the school on your funding. Research who you're going to be working for and do you get along with that person? And then lastly, do you have the time and energy to commit 6 years of your life, if you're in the United States, to do graduate school?
Absolutely. I guess to follow on from that, we all know that you defended successfully because you
Thank
have your
you.
PhD. What was the rest of your graduate school like after you had settled in?
It was amazing. I am so happy of the life that I chose as a graduate student. I love FIU and I had a great time at my university. I had a great group of colleagues and friends that supported me throughout my 5 years and a half of school. I really enjoyed the painfulness of school at the same time. It's really weird, but I feel like I am a professional nerd because of so many years that I've been in school. So, as much as sometimes I was like, oh my God, I can't do this trip, or oh my God, I need to study for this test. Oh my God, I have to commit to this project that I'm doing within the PhD, right? There's several different projects within the chemistry department. We had different hurdles or protocols that we needed to accomplish before dissertation came around. And sometimes they didn't allow me to do certain things in my life, but I enjoyed it because every time I passed one of those hurdles, I was like, okay, I'm closer to the big goal. I'm closer and closer to the big day. And as much as I sometimes wasn't enjoying the bad days, because we all have them, I was enjoying the part of grad school because there's a lot of good things that happen. I had 3 opportunities to work in national labs. And in those amazing opportunities, I was able to actually be next to world renowned scientists. And so in graduate school, you get that experience. You get to work with people that are top in your field. You get to experience working and interacting with intelligent people that you admire because you're actually writing papers and working on projects with them. And I really enjoy the time that I got my first publication out because I felt that I was closer to the end goal. And as a student, I felt like, wow, as a student, I can do this. I didn't experience that when I was when I was doing my bachelor's. This is closer to what a scientist does. And so it felt really good. And one thing that I really enjoyed during my my graduate school was that I was able to talk about my research. One thing that I noticed that I really enjoy is science communication, hence why I'm here. The reason why I'm here was because I noticed that I like science education and interaction and communication. And so when I was presenting and talking about different people about my study, which was, I should mention it, I studied the interaction between uranium and minerals whenever there is a remediation process called ammonia gas injection. So this very intriguing complex procedure, I was talking to different scientists about this, and I was like, I'm really liking the fact that I'm talking, not only working in the lab, sometimes working odd hours, sometimes even Saturdays. You know, the bad part of being a grad student is that you have to do that. But then at the same time, I was able to interact and talk about my research at these conferences with these really amazing people. And me, I got the opportunity to work in a national lab 3 times. And so that was the fun of graduate student. And you have to look for those opportunities because if you're only working in the lab and producing reports, you're not maximizing your time as a graduate student. It is your responsibility if the PI doesn't do it, it is your responsibility that your work gets out there, gets thrown into the science world, and you are able to discuss what you're discovering and studying with other peers. And that was fun for me. And I really enjoyed that.
That's really great.
Thank you.
I think we're nearly out of time, but is there anything else that you would like to say or that you would like to talk about before we end the live stream?
Well, I would like to say that graduate school is a great opportunity if you're pursuing a science degree or any type of degree, psychology, writing. It is a way for you to know yourself in an intellectual way, in a personal way. It's a great challenge that I really wish everybody would do because it puts you out there and it really pushes your boundaries. And I said it, I really wish everybody would do it. It's not for everybody. So I would suggest to, if you're deciding to go that route, that you talk to as many graduate students and PhDs and masters, and even professors, because your friends might not have the right answers for you. You should ask them and you should talk to them about this, but it is a big commitment. So if you're really craving that, as I was craving because I was missing school, if you're really craving learning and interacting with professors and students, that you should give it a try. It's not easy, but it's worth it. And for those that are still in the edge, undecisive, please shoot me an email and we can discuss it. I really like this. I'm really passionate about school, and yeah, I guess that was it. I just want to thank you for this opportunity. I really, really enjoy this, and if I can help anybody, I'm here to help. That is my Instagram, and perhaps I can leave my email, or just they could people if interested, they can contact PhD Balance. But I really thank you for this opportunity.
That's really awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and for being a great guest.
Thank you.
This has been Grad Chat by PhD Balance. We go live Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. Episodes are then posted on our podcast, hosted on Anchor FM and available on all major streaming platforms each Tuesday. Until next time, bye.
Bye.